how's it going? My name is Harmony Nice and today I'm going to be doing another Enchanted Endeavours episode, or remaking the one that I did on Friday. But before I start this video, firstly I have something to speak to you guys about and also an extreme apology to make. On a Friday night, as some of you guys may know, I put up this video previously and I removed it because it included some extreme misinformation that I just didn't want up on the internet. Typically, when I make these Enchanted Endeavours videos, I would never even bother speaking about something unless I thought that I knew it back to front, forwards to back, and if someone came up to me in the street and asked me about the subject, that if I couldn't answer them face to face, then I wouldn't even bother speaking about it on YouTube. I'm speaking about some specific paths that I feel like I thought I was educated on. But on this video on Friday, I spoke about this one specific path called Draconic Wicca. So like all of the paths that I spoke about on Friday and that I'll be speaking about today, I'd researched a very, very long time ago and I'd learnt about an extremely long time ago. Same with Draconic Wicca. And initially I was super interested in this path because it is a feminist path and I'm a massive feminist. So that path specifically I was very drawn to, and I started looking into it more and more once I found out about it. But then basically what happened is that I came across some articles on the path, and they were articles that was basically saying that this path excluded men and that they excluded trans women. Obviously this really angered me, and wrongly I just kind of took the articles as law. I never looked into the meaning behind it or whether the trans women thing was true. I just kind of stupidly took it as law and never really looked into it again, which was so wrong of me. And then when I got to record this video the other day, I thought I would speak about the path because I'd researched it ages ago and I thought that I knew enough about it to be able to talk about it. But when I actually came down to speak about it, instead of researching into it more and actually researching into the facts of what it's all about, I stupidly kind of just trash talked it and said that some of its beliefs about men not being able to join the path was bullshit and things like that, and kind of invited men to join this path. And I was kind of more speaking about how it was a feminist religion and feminism's for men and women, and I was preaching about, you know, if it's a feminist religion it should accept men as well, and I completely missed the core value of what it was all about and completely didn't even look into it because of these things that I'd read online that completely misled me, and I should know better. And because 90% of online tried to make Wicca seem bullshit anyway, so I don't know why my brain was just like, yeah. What I found out the other day after speaking to some Draconic Wiccans that follow this path, they were very kind to me, and they came and they spoke to me and explained to me why it's an only female path. And the reason for that is because that it is a safe space for women that may not feel comfortable working around men for various different amounts of reasons, and that is the core value of it. And also the trans women thing, apparently some people believe in it, but a lot of people accept trans women, and some people say this is like an outdated thing. Maybe only a few covens within the path believe in it or don't. It's not about excluding men, it's about making a safe space for women. And that was something that I didn't even consider. I am super embarrassed that preach acceptance of men into a path in one sentence, and then the next sentence literally basically call the beliefs of their path about not letting men in bullshit, and basically doing the same as what I just said, and that was so, honestly, so stupid of me. I feel absolutely terrible about it. I kind of just completely overlooked their path and didn't do any more research into it after reading these articles, and it was so dumb of me. I literally cried the whole entire of yesterday because I kind of felt like I failed a whole kind of community in my community, but it is completely my fault. Like, it is completely my fault for not doing the research into it. The last thing that I want to do within my community is exclude certain paths. I want everybody to feel like they're welcome there, and I want people to feel like, you know, I accept everybody because of my dumbass ignorance and misunderstanding of your path. I'm so happy that I posted this video, even though the comments were super hard to read. I'm really happy I did, because if I'm wrong about something, I want to know that I'm wrong about something so that in the future I can become a better Wiccan, I can learn more about my own path, I can evolve into a better person in general. I know a hell of a lot about Wicca. I spend literally every single of my days trying to learn something new about Wicca. I take pride in it being my life, and I thought I knew something about this path when clearly I didn't, and I was speaking out of my arse. In conclusion of this, I am so sorry to everybody in the Draconic path that I offended yesterday. It was completely my fault. I completely misjudged and misunderstood your path from things I had read, and I didn't mean to like offend the people in a path. That's not what I was trying to do at all. I just completely misjudged it and missed the core value of it and just didn't do my proper research in it because of something that I had learned or stupidly just took as law ages ago. So today I'm going to be remaking this video about the Wicca paths, but I'm not going to be including the Draconic path section of it because I want to make sure that I'm fully educated on this specific path before remaking it again. Maybe in the future I will make a Wicca paths part 2 with a load of other different Wicca paths that I've educated myself on, including Draconic Wicca, to kind of speak about it fairly and truly. A lot of people said that I shouldn't delete the video, but I didn't want to keep the other day's video up because of the pure fact that I didn't want to keep up misinformation on YouTube about Wicca, especially as a lot of people are learning from me. The whole reason I started making these videos was because I was so misinformed when I started my Wicca path that I felt like I needed to make videos so that I could educate you guys fairly and rightly. I should be educated, which is, you know, accessible for everybody. And if any of you guys did watch my video yesterday, I want you to take it as a lesson. I will, definitely, to not make judgmental decisions about somebody's path, whether it be in Wicca or a different religion, and just not be so judgmental about it. And even if you think you know something about it, you're not 100% sure, if it's not yours, don't judge it because it's not yours to judge. And I want you guys to know that obviously I'm not perfect. No human being is, no Wiccan is perfect, nobody is a perfect Wiccan, whatever, but that does not mean when I make mistakes that I shouldn't do something about it after I've made the mistake. And you can improve on what you have done wrong. I will learn to get better and only spread facts about the Wicca path like I've tried to do since the start of my Enchanted Endeavours videos. Now with all that being said, thank you for all the support and let's more hop into the actual video. Yes, obviously I am in a new placement at the minute. I am in my new house, woo, with a new set. I know it's a little bit basic at the minute, but I needed to record this video, so it'll probably be more changes made and things like that, but I really, really hope you like it. Today, this episode is going to be on Wicca paths and what a Wicca path is. I'll be discussing the main kind of different types of Wicca paths that I'm educated on and what they're all about, and discovering what type of Wicca path is right for you and how you can determine this. I'll also be touching on what type of Wiccan I am, what my Wicca path includes, and hopefully it will help any of you that are confused about Wicca paths and which path you think you should embark on and things like that for any of you starting out on Wicca or can't decide what Wicca path they would like to follow. If you guys did not see my last Enchanted Endeavours episode, it was an episode on the Book of Shadow and how to start yours. All of my Enchanted Endeavours videos are all about different subjects in Wicca. I'll put a link to a playlist in the description down below so you can watch my Enchanted Endeavours videos there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really, really hope you enjoyed this Enchanted Endeavours video on Wicca paths, and let's just hop right into it. So firstly, starting off with the complete basics as usual, what is a Wicca path? Unlike a lot of religions, Wicca is really, really adaptable for you specifically. Yes, of course, there are loads and loads of basic principles and beliefs in the whole kind of general thing of Wicca. And yes, of course, there's unfortunately a community in Wicca that believe that their path and their way of learning things and doing things is the right way. There are actually crazy, crazy amounts of paths and traditions that you can follow in your Wicca journey that you are embarking on, making it right for you. But although all Wiccans do follow the 8 Sabbats and the 12 Espats, and also all Wiccans do believe the basic principle of if it harms none, do what you will. You may want to choose a Wicca path because not one human is the same. I believe that even if we are learning about the same religion or embarking on the same sort of lifestyle as one another, we all are going to have different thoughts and feelings and ways we like to do things. Some traditions and paths that may suit one person and may be completely different for the other person. Also, choosing a Wicca path that you may feel is right for you can help you kind of start to embark on your Wicca journey and kind of help you find your way in Wicca. In regards to the actual basis of the faith, during your magical practicings and workings during the faith, it kind of just gives you like a clearer path and guidance to go on, kind of help you identify yourself as a Wiccan, which can be very, very personal and important to a lot of Wiccans. So now, how do you find your Wicca path? It's actually not as hard as it may seem or sound. Typically, to find your Wicca path, you can do research into the traditions and paths you can follow in Wicca, which is basically countless. There is so many paths and traditions that you can follow. So you can simply do this by just researching some traditions, and you may find a path that suits your belief or even just catches your eye, or maybe just just sparks your interest, and you may just be like, yes, that is the one that I should follow. You may just be literally drawn to a certain path from the start. Or some people, like myself, may just find a path that they have a lot of relevance to, and when you read up about it, you kind of just think, yeah, that's the path for me. I'm already living that way. That's already how I want to be practicing Wicca. Some people even use divination to decide what path may be best for them. So people, for example, people could do tarot cards, and you could, you know, do a future prediction on what your future would be like with a specific path to see is right for you if you are like really stuck. People like myself may actually have relevance to like more than one path, so you can actually combine paths to make, again, it right for you and take different elements from different paths. For example, I'm an eclectic Wiccan and I practice the faith solitarily. So I'm an eclectic solitary Wiccan, and that's just kind of what I've been from the start. And obviously you can do this with other paths. Obviously there's an extent, and hopefully, and obviously they'll have to work together, but you can obviously do this. It's pretty free on how you decide what path works best for you. Also remember that people's paths can change all the time. You could be following a specific path for years and years and years of your life, but then discover a different path and decide to embark on that different path. A certain path may suit you at one point in your life, but later on in life you may want to change your path because something will suit you more, or you just have a change of heart or something like that, and that's totally okay. Some Wiccans can go through lots and lots of different paths throughout their life, and some people can just stick to one. Now getting on to the different types of Wicca paths and traditions that you can follow. Firstly, I would like to say that these are not all of the Wicca paths and traditions that you can follow. These are just the main ones that I personally feel like I'm educated about. If you do not feel like any of these are right for you, do not worry, because there are tons and tons and tons of other Wicca paths and traditions that you can follow. This is just a short list on some Wicca paths and traditions and a little briefing on them. Starting firstly with a very well-known Wicca path, Gardnerian Wicca. So Gardnerian Wicca is actually a specific path of Wicca created by Gerald Gardner, who, if you were just getting into Wicca, you may not know, but most of Wiccans do obviously know who he is, because he is kind of considered like the dad of Wicca and has heavy influences from Aleister Crowley. And Gerald Gardner had a huge kind of input and impact on the Wicca faith and kind of spreading the word about, kind of bringing it to light and just placing it, Wicca, kind of more out into the world and spreading the word about it. Gardner created his path as a coven-based religion. He was supposedly taught in his own way from the insight and the practices that he has learned from other groups that he'd been a part of before creating this path. Gardner's covens require initiation. You can only join if a high priest or a high priestess initiates you into the coven and the faith, and they also work on a degree system. Most of the information that is learned in the coven is initiated and sworn to secrecy, where apparently Gardnerian Wiccans cannot even share the fact that they are a part of a coven, and they have to sign an oath to keep the secrets of the coven all just within the coven. There's lots and lots of these covens. Gardner has initiated lots and lots of high priests and the high priestesses to kind of open these covens throughout the world, which is why there's not actually a lot of information about what the Gardnerian path actually teaches and practices about online. Really the only information that you're going to find are from people that are no longer a part of the coven and may have said something about it in the future after they left or something like that. So there's really not a lot about what it's actually all about online. You very rarely meet a solitary Wiccan practicing this path, and obviously I'm yet to meet one because it is a coven-based religion, but there might be, I'm not 100% sure. In the Gardnerian path, you typically only follow one god and one goddess, though we do know that. This path is kind of controversial because of Gardner himself. There's been quite a lot of flaws that people have found in his teachings that people have said, and I kind of personally agree that some of his teachings do not match up with the core foundation of what Wicca is all about. And some people have said that his path seems like it's extremely exclusive, which kind of just doesn't really sit right with me. A lot of people have said, and that I've read about, Gardnerians believe that's the only way that they should learn Wicca, and they don't believe that any other Wiccan should learn a different way. Of course, that's not true at all, but of course this may be the right path for you if it's something you feel like you are drawn to. He did have some super positive influences into the faith, and really large influences into the faith that all of us do tend to use. Holy hell, some of his teachings are so outdated. I hope they kind of updated that a little bit now. The next path that we have to speak about is the Alexandrian Wicca path, and an Alexandrian Wiccan is heavily influenced by Gardnerian Wicca, but it was introduced by a man called Alexander Sanders. Once again, an Alexandrian Wiccan, much like a Gardnerian Wiccan, it is a coven-based religion, and all of the rituals are carried out by a high priest or a high priestess, and also much like the Gardnerian Wiccan, you also have to be initiated into the coven, have to sign an oath of secrecy throughout the coven and to keep the secrets all within the coven or what they learn and things like that. So once again, there's not a ton of information on what Alexandrian Wicca teaches, but we are aware that the main kind of difference between the Alexandrian path and the Gardnerian is to do with the deities. So whereas the Gardnerian path, 2 main deities, the Alexandrian path kind of more believes that you can believe in any deities that kind of suit you more, and as many as you like from any pantheon you please. And again, this religion was actually created by Alexander because he was actually originally a Gardnerian Wiccan for most of his life as a Wiccan, and I read that he said that he felt like the Gardnerian path was too controlled and forced. So this particular path incorporates elemental magic and also Quabala, I believe is pronounced, but Alexandrian Wiccans do emphasize on gender polarity, which I think is super outdated, and thankfully loads and loads of Wiccans don't practice anymore, which I definitely think is an amazing thing in the modern Wicca world now, but obviously that is just my personal opinion. So the next Wicca path we have to speak about is Celtic Wicca. Celtic Wicca is a more modern form of Wicca that traditions, much like a load of other Wicca paths, do preach strong love for the earth and spirituality, but this path obviously emphasizes a lot on Celtic lore. Celtic path typically has 2 main deities, which is the Earth Mother Goddess and the Horn God, but in this path you can also have other minor deities. A lot of other people choose to, because it is the Celtic path, believe that they should only be the Celtic deities that are followed in this path, but that again depends on the Wiccan. Some people believe you can have these 2 main deities and then your minor deities can pick and choose to be through whoever you please. Again, I think it depends on the Wiccan practicing it. People of the Celtic/Druidic also heavily stress elements, nature and the ancient ones. Within the path, they tend to build their knowledge of the magical properties in things like plants, crystals, stones, herbs, flowers, trees, elementals, spirits, gnomes, sprites, and also fairies, which they do actually use heavily in their magical workings. Celtic Wicca can be learnt and practiced solitarily, but there is also an element of the Celtic path which heavily involves being in a coven and led by a druid, and they're kind of there to lead the people in the Celtic path and helping them kind of find their way within this path. So the next Wicca path I'm going to be speaking about is Eclectic Wicca. Eclectic Wicca is one of the most largest followed paths in Wicca these days. An Eclectic Wiccan is a Wiccan that does not specifically follow a specific kind of tradition, but picks and chooses their deities as what they are drawn to and what they wish to follow within the faith. They can follow any sets of deities, again depending on what they are drawn to, from any different pantheon, or they can just pick 1 or 2 deities or many deities. They kind of just pick and choose depending on what they feel is right for their specific path. Eclectic Wiccans choose to follow one group of deities from a specific culture or whatever they please, but they believe all of the deities from different cultures are the same deities, but they all come from different civilizations and they're just presented in different ways. Technically they worship and appreciate all of the deities, but they have one main set of deities that they have that they follow and use within their working. The majority of Eclectic Wiccans tend to be solitary, but there is actually eclectic covens too. It is a very accessible kind of path in Wicca. And again, eclectic Wiccans tend to dabble in as much different types of witchcraft that they possibly can. I don't really stick to one certain type. It's quite a broad thing being an eclectic Wiccan. The next path I have to speak to you about is Shaman Wicca, which I personally believe into being one of the most interesting paths in Wicca, and it's definitely something that I would like to look into in the future. Even though for an extremely long time, and still is now, shaman is its kind of own specific type of person. A shaman is a kind of its own thing and its individual path from Wicca. Now it can actually be seen as quite a heavily rising path within Wicca to be a Shaman Wicca. And combining shaman and Wicca is becoming a very, very popular thing and seems to be quite a modern combination, even though it's probably been going on for a lot longer than it seems. Shaman Wiccans follow the same tradition as any other Wiccan does. A Shaman Wiccan is somebody who throughout their practices and throughout their faith practices connecting with the spirit realm. A shaman is somebody who can reach and connect to different states of consciousness in their practices, and they can use their shaman practices to speak to spirits when they are in this different state of consciousness or in the spirit realm to kind of get answers for things, which can actually be used as a different form of divination. Shamans also practice healing both mentally, physically and spiritually. Shaman Shaman can follow any deities they please, much like an eclectic Wiccan, just kind of depending on what they're drawn to and what feels right to them. They also like to use spirits that they connect to within the spirit realm to help them with their spell work and practices. Again, shamans can work solitarily or within a coven, depending on what the practices they use to enter the different altered state. The next path that we have to speak about today is Seax Wicca. I think that's how that's pronounced. I'm probably butchering all of these, I'm very, very sorry. Seax Wicca is a Wiccan practice greatly influenced by Anglo-Saxon tradition and the folklore of Anglo-Saxons too. This specific Wicca path follows greatly Germanic traditions, like the Gardnerian path does as well. A Seax Wiccan would typically follow Germanic deities. There is also a heavily influence coming from the Gardnerian path into this path too. It's the creator of it, Raymond Buckland, was actually a Gardnerian Wiccan before he created this path. Apparently, much like Alexander did that we spoke about earlier, he left the path when he saw flaws within what Gardnerian Wicca was teaching and decided to create his own path. You can actually practice this faith solitarily, even though it is a coven-based religion, and Raymond himself actually created this path to be more accessible for different types of Wiccans. Seax Wicca does have a lot of covens, but within these covens they actually follow a state of democracy, where the high priests and the high priestesses, instead of being elected by the creator, are actually chosen by a yearly vote. If you're looking into Seax Wicca or into joining a coven on Seax Wicca, that may be an amazing thing to do within the path if it's something you're drawn to and that you're interested in. There's kind of not one set of rules and regulations for Seax Wicca. Just kind of traditions that honour the Germanic deities, and also runestones are the more preferred method of divination within this path. Also, from what I'm aware, I'm pretty sure within this path there's not like a sworn to secrecy sort of thing within this path, which is quite interesting. Next path we have to speak about is Hereditary Wicca. Hereditary Wicca kind of maybe says it in the name a little bit, is actually a Wiccan that is born into a family that practices Wicca or have ancestors that have practiced Wicca too. They may have been brought up as a Wiccan or may have discovered Wicca from their family and decided to adapt Wicca later on in life, but either way they come from a family that practice it. Again, Hereditary Wicca is commonly kind of combined with other paths within Wicca, since they may follow a path that their family does, or they may find a different path later on in life that suits them better and decide to combine it with being a Hereditary Wicca. Hereditary Wiccans can sometimes be a part of a family coven or a different coven, or choose to practice the faith solitarily, depending on what path they choose to take later on in life. And next, as we just mentioned, the next path I'm going to speak about is Solitary Wicca. And as you can guess from the name, Solitary Wicca is a Wiccan that does not belong to any coven or any group and practices the Wicca faith mainly alone. Again, much like Eclectic Wiccans, they choose to follow any deities that they may please, they are drawn to, and the same with the amount of deities, as many as they please or they are drawn to. They follow one or a whole pantheon or whatever, or a combination. A lot of Wiccans these days seem to be going for the more solitarily path, since when they get into joining the faith, they seem to like to kind of explore their own ways of doing things, and their own discoveries within the faith, which is a lot of new Wiccans in the modern world. Solitary Wiccans tend to have no desire to join a coven or a group. If they are actively seeking to join a coven or a group or something like that, they would kind of tend to not to define themselves as a solitary Wiccan, and this is the most common path to combine with other paths. It's basically everybody that practices the faith alone and that's not in a coven, and that they may obviously have a different path that they follow too. The next path we have to speak about is Faery Wicca. Faery Wiccan is somebody that follows fairy lore, or the Fae, which is what they are usually identified as. Fae are creatures known such as sprites, gnomes, elves, obviously fairies, who keep everything kind of balanced within the natural world that we live in. Faery Wicca actually developed early Celtic traditions and beliefs. Faery Wiccans tend to practice and work closely with fairy magic and fairy energies, and obviously other members of the Fae, and they usually use fairy power and energy current from the Fae as well. Work along fairy energies and hold them at a very, very high standard within their workings, higher than usually any other deities. As a Fairy Wiccan, you tend to hold them quite high, and then you can also actually have other deities that are kind of more minor as well, but usually they put the Fae like above the other deities. Some people believe that they should only work with the Fae and not have any other deities, and some people believe it's fine to have any other deities. Again, I think it just kind of depends on the Wiccan practicing it. And I believe that you can do this path within a coven, or you can do it solitarily too. Marina is actually a fairy witch, not a fairy Wiccan, but from what I'm aware, and what she tells me about this specific kind of tradition, It sounds absolutely amazing, and it sounds like such a lovely path to go down and so interesting. And we're working with the amazing fae and things like that. It's so interesting. Definitely if this is something you're drawn to, I definitely would pursue looking into it, from my opinion anyway. Next path that we have to speak about, getting to the last few, is Draconic Wicca. So Draconic Wicca is the sort of same concept as Faery Wicca, sort of, except Draconic Wiccans follow dragon lore and dragons instead. Draconic Wiccans obviously largely practice with draconic magic that is powered by the strong energies of dragons. Believe it or not, dragons and dragon lore is actually a really ancient belief that has been found like literally drawn like on walls from ancient walls from loads of different civilizations that literally could not physically have any possibility of connecting them together, but yet they seem to appear throughout history. Even when we had no connection with different sides of the world, they were talking about dragons, do you know what I mean? For most practitioners of dragon magic, dragons represent wisdom and courage and also balance. For most people who practice Draconic Wicca and obviously Draconic Wiccans, the dragon energies that they follow tend to be above their deities, and they kind of put them at a super high standard. The other deities that they may follow, they may have, are kind of seen as minor deities and would be kind of put underneath them as when it comes to greatness and importance of who they follow and who they put higher in their practices. From what I'm aware, lots and lots of the dragons that they work with have specific kind of meanings and things behind them that kind of represent different things too. That's why they kind of use them within their magical workings and call upon different ones during the magical workings, much like you would deities. They kind of have them for different purposes during their Wicca practices. Dragon is invoked or evoked during major times of magical practices, and they are needed greatly, i.e. the sabbats, the full moons, or spell work that you need the most high level of power for, because dragons are not ones to be kind of messed around with. They are really strong, and the energies working around with them needs to be kind of very much appreciated. Draconic Wiccans can again be in a coven or solitarily. Lots of the information about Draconic Wicca again is passed down through generations and also by mouth and ear, so a lot of it is not online. Again, a lot of what you learn is from face to face and from different people that practice, but it's becoming increasingly more common. There's actually kind of more information than there used to be online and things like that. There's actually a girl on YouTube that practices Draconic Wicca. I think her name's like Dragon Feather, something like that, but she actually has a video about it, so I'll link that down below. It's very informative. She's very beautiful and interesting. If you'd like to learn more about that, I'll link that down below. The last but not least Wicca path I have to speak about is Green Wicca. Again, this is actually something that I really strongly looked into before I went for the eclectic path, and something I do think I'll look into more in the future. The Green Wiccan is a Wiccan that practices mainly and solely nature-based and earth-orientated witchcraft. Green Wiccans can once again follow any deities that they may please from any pantheon, from whatever kind of they feel drawn to, or actually follow nature spirits, which is the spirits of the deceased humans, animals, plants, or the fae. It's actually a large belief and tradition in Green Wicca too. The form of green witchcraft or Green Wicca, which we are speaking about, was actually kind of brought to light and invented by a person called Anna Moore, I think her name is. They are connected to the forest and put a lot of emphasis on folklore and folk magic from a wide range of different cultures. Green Wiccans can be solitary practitioners or in a coven as well. There's kind of no preferred way to be in this practice. Green Wiccans usually practice witchcraft using different elements from the earth, such as herbs, trees, crystals, plants, and they're used for their magical value during kitchen magic, which can be a kind of different path within itself, and also herbology. It's a common thing among a lot of Wiccans, but especially Green Wiccans, to grow everything that they use for their magical workings and, you know, the different types of herbology and things that they do in their practices, and, you know, growing their herbs and things like that for their practices. That is all the Wicca paths that I have to tell you guys about today. Now for my specific Wicca path. So if you guys haven't heard me mention before or haven't heard me mention in this video, I am an eclectic solitary Wiccan. So I follow the eclectic path because I feel like it gives me an opportunity to kind of explore as much as I want within Wicca. And throughout my lifetime, obviously that's just my personal opinion, I feel like it's the most broad one for me personally, and it kind of lets me do kind of everything that I would want to please to do and explore as much different types of witchcraft and things like that as I would please. Just in my personal opinion, I know a lot of other paths allow you to do this as well, but this is just how I feel like is the right way to do it for me. And the solitary part, I do practice majority, if not all, of my Wicca practices alone. But I obviously do spend these Sabbats usually with my friend Marina, and she's the only person I would ever share anything like that with. Again, very rarely. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's everything that I have for you in this Enchanted Endeavours episode today. I really hope it helped you, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in my next video, which will actually be another unsolved mystery video. Woo! And I will see you soon. Bye guys.